Hello everyone. Today we are going to start lecture 05 of class 8 mathematics chapter number 5, which is data handling. In this lecture we are going to talk about pictorial representation of data. We have already talked about graphical representation of data, in which we saw bar graphs for ungrouped frequency distribution, or you can say discrete frequency distribution, and we saw histograms for grouped frequency or continuous frequency distribution, right? In this lecture, we are going to talk about another visual representation of data, which is pictorial representation. It is not exactly graphical, but it represents the data visually, which is again a bit more easier to read than the histograms and bar graphs. These representation of data are called pie charts. So what is a pie chart? You can clearly see there is a figure in which there is a circle and there are different sectors which has been cutted. You've already seen pizza, right? Everybody has ate pizza, and in that particular pizza you will see that there are different slices which look somewhat like this portion, right? So this portion is called sector of a circle. Let me first recall that when you draw a circle, this particular portion, now this is a chord, now this is called segment, minor segment, and this is major segment, right? But if in a circle from center you draw an arc and you cut this portion, so this portion was segment, this is something called sector, right? And this is, since this is small, this is called minor sector, and this remaining circle is called major sector. So whenever you try to eat a pizza next time, just remember that what you are eating sector of a pizza, right? So this pizza is circular and the slices are in the form of sectors of circle, right? So these sectors are actually used to represent pie charts or circle charts. These pie charts are also known as circle charts. So let us talk about what are pie charts. Okay, so from the definition, a pie chart is nothing but a diagram. So a diagram used to represent statistical data. A diagram used to represent statistical data by dividing a circle into sectors, as we have done in this diagram, is known as pie chart, or pie graph, right? You can also call them pie graph. You can clearly see a pie is also in this shape, in this circular shape, and we also eat pie just like pizza by cutting these slices, which are actually in the form of or in the shape of sectors. So these pie graphs, since they are circular, pie graphs, we can also call them pie graphs are circular, right? You can clearly see they are circular in shape. So pie graphs are circular, comma, so they are also called circle graphs, right? So this is another name. So if someday questions come that draw a circle graph, don't get confused. They are just asking to draw a pie chart or a pie graph, simple pie chart. Okay. Now you can clearly see that this sector represents something. This is called 50%, and you can clearly see that this portion, this greenish portion, is actually half of the circle, or you can say it is a semicircle. So yes, it takes 50%. This is about 1/5 of the circuit, which take 20%. You can sum, and the sum would be 100%, right? So we have divided this circle into 5 different sectors, right? In which one sector is alone 50%, and these 4 make up to the another 50%. In which this 20%, 10%, 7%, and 13%. So they must represent some data. Now it can be the expenditure of your income, right? How do you expend, or how do you spend? Okay, so this is the expenditure graph. Suppose 50% goes to education, 7% goes to food, 10% to rent, 20% to clothing, and 13% goes to savings. right? So this is very convenient to represent the data, and this area represents, see, major portion, half of the portion goes to your savings. So this diagram and this diagram's half area should be covered in that. So that is the basic feeling behind drawing a pie chart or pie data. So you can clearly see that the area of the sector you are dedicating to a particular data depends on the frequency of the data. If your expenditure or your spending is more on something, then it should acquire more area because it is taking up more of your data points, right? So we can clearly state here, so this is a property of pie chart, basic property, that is why we are preferring pie chart. It says that each sector, since there are 5 sectors, so we can say each sector of a pie chart or a pie graph, each sector of a pie graph shows a fraction of the total. Each sector of a pie graph shows a fraction of the total, right? Now what is the total? Total means total data. So 100%, so you are showing fractions of these percentages, right? What is percentage? It is just a fraction. What is 7%? 7 upon 100 of the total part. Suppose the total earning was 10,000 and you are spending 50,000. So what is 50%? Half of the 50% is 50 by 100, that is half of the total, that is 5,000 rupees. So in this way we are representing a fraction of the total part, right? So basically what it shows, this fraction is actually showing the relation of the part with the whole. That is, if your income is again 10,000 rupees, so what this greenish portion is showing, it is showing that half of your income is spent on this particular data point. You can name it education, you can name it suppose rent, if half of your goes into saving, if half of your expenditure goes to your particular hobby, anything. Okay, so we can directly say that it shows. Now what is it here? It means sector. So a sector shows the relation. I'll show you what it means in a minute. It shows the relation of the part. It shows the relation of the part with the whole. Right, you can clearly see this particular sector will show the relation of the part with the whole, but how do it show? We do not know what it is. So let me give you an idea with this pie chart. You can clearly see this is the pie chart of hours spent. Obviously everybody have one single day and one single day contains 24 hours, right? So we have divided our time into 5 parts. So let us suppose that these are the hours spent of a student, of a school going student, right? You can clearly see these are 5 sectors, and that is what I was talking about. See, each sector is relating to something. So what we have done is we have given the name. In the above pie chart we have shown the percentages. Here we have directly shown the number of hours. Now you can take out the percentage. Total pie chart represents 24 hours. So what does this homework represent? 4 hours. That is 4 upon 24. So 1/6. You can give it a percentage. Similarly, what is sleep? Straight 8 hours. Now 8 hours is what? 8 upon 24 is 1/3. So 1/3 of the day goes into sleeping. That is a normal thing. School. Students spend 6 hours in school. So what does it mean? It means that 1/4, 6 of, I will show you how the calculations are done, but for the time being I am explaining the statement that see each sector is representing, or you can see each sector is relating the data to some particular category, that is sleep, school. So it is very easy to read. Now let me show you how the calculations are done and how with the help of this pie chart we actually find out. Okay, for example, in this case the proportion of the sector, for hours spent. Now what is proportion? The ratio. Okay, and if you multiply that ratio by 100 you will get the percentage. So for hours spent in sleeping, so let us first find out the proportion of hours spent in sleeping is what? Straight number of hours of sleeping or numbers of sleeping hours, right? So we have number of sleeping hours as 8 whole upon the total number of hours, that is the whole day. You can write here whole day or total number of hours. So total number of hours is the actual sum of all these hours, which is 24. Obviously we have 24 hours in a day, so that is 24 hours, and that is 8 hours. So you can easily find out that the fraction is 1 upon 3, and if you multiply it with by 100 you will get 33.33%. So this sector is what? 33.33% of whole. Okay, or in fraction you can write it as 1 by 3 in fraction. So that is the convenience which we get in drawing a pie chart. Now let us talk about another sector. Okay, let us repeat this method and find this same data for another particular sector, right? For example, let us talk about school. Okay, so clearly this sector represents 1 by 3rd of the total circle. Okay, and I'll show you in a bit. Okay, let me, for out of curiosity, let me show you. You all know that this angle is 360 degree. Obviously a circle subtends 360 degree at center. Now since this area is 1 upon 3, that is 1/3 of the total circle is represented by this area, so this circumference should be 1/3 of the total, right? So this angle should also be 1/3 of the total. You will later find out this angle was actually 120 degree, right? I'll show you it in a minute that how this 120 degree is been calculated when we will construct the pie charts. Now for the time being, we are just taking into consideration that this is a pie chart and this area is 1/3 of the total. Okay, so you can write that. So this sector, this blue sector, this sector is drawn. This sector is drawn as 1/3. This sector is drawn as 1/3 part of the circle, right? So that is what this pie chart gives us. This pie chart gives us the convenience of drawing the area. Okay, it is nothing different from histogram. In that histogram, what we did was we drew rectangles of a particular width, but the height was decided by frequency. That is the case here also. The area and this central angle, we'll call it the central angle. This is decided on the basis of what? Frequency, right? So from the total 24 hours, you are spending 8 hours. Had you spent 12 hours, it would be half. We have to dedicate a half semicircle. Since school we are only spending 1/4, so we can see that area is also 1/4, and you will easily find out that this is just a quadrant, right? This angle would be 90 degree. I'll show you how I am calculating these angles. Okay, now let us talk about another sector. Let us do the calculation for school also. Okay, so the proportion of sector, let us find out the proportion. The proportion of the sector, for hours spent in school is equals to number of school hours, right, which are actually 6. Number of school hours whole upon whole day, or you can write total number of hours, right? So whole day. So doing this calculation, we'll get 6 hours whole upon 24 hours. Now 6 upon 24 would be 1 upon 4. So you can clearly see that this is 1 upon 4 is what? Fraction multiplied by percentage. So we will get actually 25%. Now since it is 25% in circle, 25% means what? A quadrant. So a quadrant angle is 90 degrees. So you will further find out that this angle was actually 90 degree. So that is that easy to actually calculate the area of pie chart, central angle. Now you can say that since it was given, so we could easily find out. What if we have to make a pie chart? We have to construct a pie chart out of a given data. Okay, so let us talk about construction of pie charts. Okay, what are the points that we have to remember? How actually we calculate the different data points to construct a pie chart? Let us talk about that, right? So the first point is we'll follow some steps to construct a pie chart. So the first step is that from the given data, comma, we find the total of the frequencies. As we did in the above case, okay, we just find out that we have total of 24 hours, so it would be easier because it will form the denominator of our calculations, right? So that is an important point, to find out the total of the frequencies. Second, now for each variable, comma, we calculate the angle for each variable, comma, we calculate the angle of the sector for each variable, comma, we calculate the angle of the sector. Now what is this angle of the sector? That is angle of the sector, that is the angle at the center, that is the angle at the center of the circle, right? That is the angle at the center of the circle. Let me show you. This is the central angle. Okay, this is the sector angle, that is the angle subtended by this arc at the center. Obviously these two lines are radius and this is the arc curvature. So this is the central angle we are talking about. We will calculate it for each variable. Okay, so for each variable we will calculate the angle of the sector, that is this angle at the center of the circle. Now how do we do this? Using a formula. Now this angle is called central angle. This angle is called central angle. Now what is central angle? Let me give you the formula which we will use to calculate this. So central angle for a variable, is equals to frequency of the variable. Central angle of a variable is equal to frequency of the variable, whole upon total of frequency. See, we have calculated the total of frequency. I told you that it will form the denominator, so we will write total of frequencies, frequency of the variable whole upon total of the frequencies into 360 degree. So this is how. Why 360 degree? Because actually 360 degree is the total angle of the circle. So we will find out that how much of this angle does our data point deserves. For example, in this case the frequency was 8 hours. Total number of hours was 124, so the fraction came out to be 1 by 3, and if you multiply it with the 360 degree, you will find out 3 cancelled out by 360, you will find out 120 degree. Similarly, in this case, fraction came out to be 1 by 4. If you multiply it by 24, you will get what? You will get, if you multiply it by 360 degree, you will get 90 degree. So this was how we calculated this, or I calculated this central angle. Okay, so this is the second step. Now since you have calculated central angle, almost 80% of your job has been done. Now what is the third step? After calculating this central angle, the third step is we draw a circle. Since we have to draw a pie chart, so we have to first draw a circle, then divide it. So we have to draw a circle of convenient radius. We draw a circle of convenient radius, right? So we have to draw a circle of convenient radius. Now what is the fourth point is we draw the sectors corresponding to the central angles. That is what we are actually dividing the pie chart. Okay, we draw the sectors corresponding to the central angles. Central angles calculated in step 2. Right, And at last what we'll do is we'll draw the pie chart, simple, or you can write out the names. At last we will write down the names. At last we will write down the names of the variables, and their corresponding names of the variable and their corresponding central angles. Name of the variables and their corresponding central angles in the sectors. Okay, so we will just write down the names of the variables. That is what we have done in the previous stage. You can clearly see that in this particular case what we did was we just write down the name on the sectors. So that is homework, that which sector represents sleep hours, which sector represents school hours. Okay, also you can give them shade of different type of colors, or you can do some hatching on the particular sector to separate it from the other. But the best part is to just write down the name of the variable or the variate of which you are representing the pie chart. Okay, so this is the first step. From the given data we find the total of frequency. What is the second step? For each variable we calculate the angle of the sector, that is angle at the center of the circle. This angle is called central angle. How do we calculate it? We will find the frequency of the variable for which we have to calculate the angle. We'll divide it by the total number of frequencies, so that would be fraction, right? We'll get the fraction of what it deserves to be in the area of a pie chart, and then we multiply it by 360 degrees. So we'll take our share out of this 360 degree. Okay, so we will distribute the share of 360 degree into different sectors according to the number of variables, right? Then we'll draw a circle of convenient radius so that it do not get out of your notebook. After that, with the help of compass, obviously, right? Then we draw the sectors corresponding to the central angles with the help of protractor and scale ruler, right? Write down the names of variables and their corresponding central angles, and then we are done. Now let us take a question to illustrate this particular construction. Okay, let us take one question. So this particular question represents that on a particular day the sales in rupees of different items of a baker's shop are given below. So what is the data point is? It is the sales on different particular items. So data points are actually the commodities, or you can see the products which were sold in a baker shop on a particular day, and the total earning was. So obviously the question has done one more thing for us. It has already calculated the total, so we do not have to do it once more, right? So if had he not given the total, we first have to actually get the total of these particular variables and the actual sales in rupees, and then we have to continue the question. So yes, first step has already been done. So we have already the total. Now there are total 5 variables, so you can easily assume that for a circle or for a circle chart or a pie chart, you will have 5 different sectors, in which obviously the largest sector will be dedicated to the ordinary breed and the smallest sector will be dedicated to this data point, which is others. Okay, so let us draw the pie chart of this particular data. Now first of all, this pie chart, we have to draw a table. If you want, you can draw a table. If you want, you cannot. Okay, it is just a bit convenient to draw a table. So we can clearly see what we'll do is here total sale. So first of all, we need a total. So total sale is equals to rupees 720. Okay, so we need to find the central angle. We need to find the central angle of each sector. So that is what we have to do. We have to find out the central angle of each sector. So this is the total sale, rupees 720, and we need to find the central angle for each sector. Now how do we do that? First of all, we have to find the variable for which we are calculating the central angle. So there should be the items. For example, the first item was ordinary bread. Second item was biscuits. Third item in the question was cakes. and pastries. The third item was cakes and pastries. The fourth item is fruit bread. Okay, it is flavored kind of bread, so fruit bread. And the last particular sector was others. So these were the items which we are talking about. Now let us talk about their particular value variables, that is sales. Okay, sales obviously in rupees because we have total in rupees only. So let us talk about their individual sales. So bread, ordinary bread was sold worth of rupees 320. Biscuits for rupees 120. We sold 160 rupees worth of cakes and pastries, 80 rupees worth of fruit bread, and 40 rupees worth of others. Okay, so now what we have to do, we have to calculate central angle. So first of all, we know that in the step we need to find the fraction. So let us talk about the fraction. So in fraction, this sales would be, so this is 320 and the total is 720, right? So we will get, cancelling 0 from 0, we will get the fraction is 4 upon 9. Similarly here, that is 120 and the total is 720. So dividing both numerator and denominator by 120, we will get the fraction to be 1 by 6. For 160, we will have 160 upon 720. In this the fraction turns out to be 2 upon 9. Then we have fruit bread for rupees 80. So 80 upon 720, again cancelling the 0 and then dividing by 8, we will get the fraction to be 1 upon 9. And at last 40 upon 720. So directly dividing 720 by this 40 and cancelling out the common, we will get 1 upon 18. So these are the fractions. Now what we have to do, finally we actually have made this table just to calculate the central angle. So that is our final purpose, to calculate central angle, right? Now how do we calculate the central angle? Simple, in the same way, multiplying this fraction by 360 degree. So 4 upon 9 into 360 degree will give us 160 degree. Similarly 1 upon 6 into 360 degree will give us 60 degree, and 2 upon 9 into 360 degree is equals to 80 degree. Similarly 1 upon 9 into 360 degree is equals to 40 degree. And then calculating the central angle for final sector, we will get, obviously 18 into 2 is 36, so we will get 20 degree. You can easily calculate that since we have find out the fraction from total, the sum of all these angles would be 360 degree. Let us check. 160 plus 60 will be 220. 220 plus 80, 300, 340, and then 18, 20 will get 360 degree. So we have divided our particular circle into 5 sectors of these angles each. Now we have to construct it. So let me show you what the constructed and the actual figure or the answer of this question looks like. Then I'll show you how we have constructed it, right? So the answer to this question will look something like this. You can clearly see that ordinary bread has been represented by 320 degree, and since we have calculated the angle to be 160 degree, so you can clearly measure that this angle would be 160 degree. Similarly for others, we've calculated the angle to be 20 degree, and for fruit bread it was 40 degree. So for others you can measure it would be 20 degree, and for fruit bread it was 40 degree. Similarly you can clearly see for biscuits it was 60 and for pastries it was 80. So for biscuits it would be 60 degree, and for pastries this central angle would be 80 degree. You will calculate that is how we have divided this 360 degree. And then we have already written the name of the variables along with their values. You can represent the angles, you can also write the fractions, you could also convert them into percentage. That is up to you as per the data is required in the question. Now the question arises, how actually have we constructed? So in the last step, what we have talked about is we have to draw a circle of certain radius, convenient radius. So I've drawn, mark the center. The first thing you have to draw is, the only thing which you have to draw is, you just have to draw a straight line. Okay, this is the first dividing line. Now you just have to construct the angles. First of all, if you want to construct for suppose others, so with the help of protractor, keep your protractor and mark a sector at 20 degree. You have just represented others, right? Now taking this line as the particular baseline, mark another at 40 degree. Now you have represented what? you have represented fruits and bread. Now taking this as center, mark another line for 60 degree. It would be something like this. So it is just 60 degree. Now you just represented biscuits. Now taking this line as center, mark another angle at 80 degree. Okay, so it would be something like this. So it would be 80 degree. You have just represented what? Cakes and pastries, and the remaining will automatically come out to be 360 degree. You can also call them as the sum of the total angles, because it have to be 360 degree. So that is the construction. Okay, let me represent the baseline which we have done first from another perspective, so that it would be easier to understand. So this is actually our baseline. Okay, so this was the first line, then you have drawn these subsequent lines with the help of this baseline. So this is very easy to construct. Okay, so this was all about the construction of pie chart. Let us take another question and again see the same construction, okay, with different data points. So now the question is very simple. Now the question says that the following table shows the color preferred by a group of people. Now what are the colors? Number of people. The colors are blue, green, yellow, red. Okay, blue, green, yellow, red. These are the 4 colors. So obviously there are 4 data points, so 4 sectors would be made. Now number of people in each sector is 18, 9, 6 and 3. So you can take out the total. So first thing, in this question we have not given the total. So we will find the total of number of people, and then with the help of fraction, that is 18 upon total into 360 degree, we will find out central angle. Once we have calculated central angle, we just have to repeat the process which we have done in the above question. So let us start the solution. Okay, so we have to represent the data by pie chart. So let us start the solution. So first of all, we will calculate the total frequency. Right here, total frequency. What is total frequency? Number of people. So total number of people we have surveyed is 18 plus 9 plus 6 plus 3, which would turn out to be 9 plus 9, 18 plus 18, so that is 36. So total there were 36 people. Now you can clearly see that blue represented 18 people. Out of 36, 18 people like blue. That is actually half. So you can, without even constructing the pie chart, without even finding out the central angle, you can clearly see that you will dedicate half of the circle, that is about 180 degree of the central angle, to just blue color. So that is easy. That is how easy it is to calculate the central angles. Okay, so let us start calculating those angles. So central angles first. For blue color is equals to, now the frequency of blue is 18, total frequency equals to 36 into 360 degree. We will find out it is half into 360, we will get 180 degree, right? Second, for green color, it would be 9 upon 36 into 360 degree, which would turn out to be 90 degree, right? Now again, for red color, the frequency is 6, so 6 upon 36 into 360 degree would turn out to be 60 degree. And the fourth is for yellow color. For yellow color, it is 3 upon 36 into 360 degree, which would turn out to be 30 degree. You can clearly see the sum is 360 degree. So we have well dedicated the central angles. Now it is our job, or it is our time to actually make the pie chart. So you can clearly see the pie chart would look something just like this. Okay, so in this pie chart you can obviously see that blue is of 180 degree, right? So see, that is half of the circle. For yellow we have calculated the central angle to be 30 degree, so it is just very small. For red, the central angle came out to be 60 degree, and you can clearly see this is a quadrant. Green has occupied a complete quadrant which is 90 degree. So in this way we have constructed a pie chart. So what we will do is we will again draw a circle of suitable radius. We'll just draw a baseline. On a baseline, what we'll do is we'll first of all make 30 degree, so it would be like this. So it is yellow. Okay, so you can make it a bit spacious, so that is 30 degree. Now using this particular line we have to draw 60 degree, so it would be something like this. So that is 60 degree. Okay, then using this baseline we just have to draw, we have to extend this line. Okay, because this has to be 180 degree, so this will automatically come out to be 90 degree, and then we will construct it 80 degree. So you can make these angles with the help of a protractor and a ruler. It is very easy. Okay, and you can choose the radius according to your convenience, and then we just have to write the data points. That is that it represents blue color, what is the frequency, okay, what is the fraction, what is the percentage of the area. You can write all those things as per the question. So this was all about construction of pie chart. Now let us talk about that. If a pie chart is given to you, can we read it, or what kind of questions can be asked with the help of pie chart, right? So in this question we are given that in an adjoining pie chart, expenditure in percentage, okay, in percentage on various items and savings of a family during a month is been given. So we do not care how this pie chart has been made. It is correct because you can add up the percentages and it would come out to be 100%, right? So the fraction is complete. Now on which item the expenditure was maximum? Okay, so we have to answer this question. So let us see on which item the expenditure was maximum. You can clearly see that the most number of percent is food, so that is the maximum one. Okay, so the first question was that on which item the expenditure was maximum. So you can write it down as expenditure is maximum on food, right? So you can write like this, that expenditure is maximum on food. Now the second question was on this pie chart, expenditure on which item is equal to the total savings of the family. Now let us find out the savings. So savings are just 15%. Now you can clearly see that education for children, this sector, so education for children also consumes 50% of their expenditure or 50% of their income, and 15% savings consumed. So they both are equal. You can clearly see these are vertically opposite angles because this is a straight line and this is also a straight line, right? So you can again write the answer as expenditure on education of children, is the same that is 15%. Okay, we were to find out the same expenditure, okay, as the savings. So expenditure on education is 15%, which is the same as the savings, of the family, right? So it is same as the savings of the family, right? Let us talk about the third part of the question, which simply says that if the monthly savings of the family is 3,000, okay, if it is 3,000 in rupees, right? So family is rupees 3,000. What is the monthly expenditure on the clothes? Now the clothes consume 10% of your particular savings, so you can directly calculate the 10% of 3,000 is what? 300 rupees. But let us find out that how we calculated it. Okay, so the monthly total expenditure is 3,000. That is the sum of all these expenses combined is 3,000 rupees. Sorry, monthly savings is 3,000 rupees. So what is the monthly expenditure on clothes? So it is not the income but monthly savings. So if savings are 3,000, then savings are 15% and the clothes is 10%. So you can find out if it is 15%, then you can easily calculate what is the 10% of these particular saving, right? So let us calculate it. So the savings of the family was, okay, so you can write that 15% represents 15% represents rupees 3000. Since 3000 has been given the savings and savings are 15%, so 15% is rupees 3000. So let us use the unitary method. So what unitary method saying that if we are given the cost of 10 chocolates, what we do is we find the cost of 1 chocolate, so it becomes easier. So what 1% represents implies that 1% represents, obviously we will divide rupees 3000 with 15. So after dividing it with 15 we will get we'll cancel out 15, so it will get 2 times and then 200, so it will represent rupees 200, right? So 1% of anything, of any expenditure in this particular graph is representing rupees 200. Simple, right? So 15% represents 3000, 1% represents 200. Now what was the question? The question was simply, what is the monthly expenditure in clothes? The monthly expenditure in clothes was 10%. So you can write, so comma, monthly expenditure on clothes is equals to 10%, which is equals to 10 into rupees 200, because 1% represents 200 rupees, so it would be rupees 2000. So rupees 2000 are being spent on clothes, right, every month. So this was how we read a particular pie graph. Let us take another question which actually shows how to read this particular pie graph, okay? Or we just have to take another case so that we can actually strengthen this particular method. So this particular question says that the adjoining pie chart shows the pets kept by the people of a locality. So we have done a survey in a locality that how many people keeps parrot, fish, etc. Read the pie chart and answer the following question. So we can already see that maximum number of people likes to keep dog, and then second maximum cat, and then fish and parrots. Okay. So the first question is very easy. It simply asks which pet is most popular. So you can clearly see the most popular means maximum number of people would like it. You can clearly see the area of the sector which is dedicated to dog is the maximum. So you can clearly see maximum people like dog. Okay. So how do we write? We can actually write the question, or we can write the answer as since the sector for dogs, since the sector for dogs is the largest, comma, so dog is most popular. So we are calculating the popularity on the basis of number of people who like to keep a particular pet, right? Let us talk about the second part. Which two pets are equally popular? You can clearly see that sectors of fish and parrots, though we are not given the area, but we can clearly see that since the question is asking sectors of parrots and fish seems to be of equal area, so you can clearly see these two pets are actually equally popular. So we can write the direct answer as parrots and fish, right? Now the third part says 80 people were questioned, right? Suppose 80 people were questioned, how many had a cat? So this total chart represents 80 people. Now you can clearly see that here the cat is representing 90 degrees, so that is 90 degree of the sector. So cat is acquiring 1/4 of the area. So if 80 people were asked, so 80 people is the total frequency. We have 90 degree as a central angle, so we can easily calculate the frequency of cat, right? With the help of central angle formula, which we already used. So the sector for cats subtends subtends an angle. The sector for cats subtends an angle of 90 degree. An angle of 90 degree at the center, right? So you can easily calculate. Therefore, number of people who keeps a cat is equals to. Now what is the fraction of people? You can see, sir, fraction is nothing but 90 degree whole upon 360 degree. That is 1/4 of the total people which we have asked keeps cat. Now how many people we have asked? 80 people. So just multiply this fraction by that. So 1/4 into 80 would be 20. So nearly 20 people. That is 1/4 of the total people we have asked keeps cat. So it was that easy. Now let us talk about the last question, which says that what percentage of people like parrots. Now we can clearly see that what parrots actually mean here. Now since that is 90 degree, see, that is again a smart question. They have not given the central angle. They are asking you to calculate it. Since you can clearly see this fish and parrot together make a quadrant, and since these are equal, so this 90 degree is also divided into two parts. So for parrots it would be 45 degree. Okay, so it could happen that they will not give you central angle and they will ask you the questions from obvious sectors, which you can easily identify that what is the central angle, how we have calculated it. Since fish and parrots make up 1/4, that is in 90 degree, it is clear from the figure, and we have already seen that they are equally popular, so their central angle must be same. So this 90 degree is divided into 45 and 45 degree. Okay, so let us calculate the percentage of people who like parrots with the help of this 45 degree. So we will start by telling that the sector for parrots subtends an angle of 45 degree at the center So 45 degree upon 360 degree. So we'll first calculate the fraction is equals to 1/8. So at the center, so 45 degree upon 360 degree, that is equals to 1/8 of the total people. We have surveyed. Like parrots. Simple. So the fraction of people which like parrots is 1/8. Now in percentage you can easily calculate. In percentage, it is 1/8 into 100%. Calculating it, we'll find out it is 12.5%, or you can write it 12/2%. So 12.5% of the total people like the number of parrots, or they like the parrot as their pet. So this was all about this question, in which we tried to learn that how to read a pie chart. So in this lecture we have talked about what is pie chart, why it is important, why it is convenient, how to construct one pie chart, how to read a pie chart, okay, what is central angle, how to represent data points, how to write variables, right? What are fractions in particular cases? So this was all about this lecture. I hope you all got my point. Okay, thank you for watching this lecture till end. I'll see you in the next lecture. Till then, goodbye.